Hey everybody, it's Mike from Bantha Fodder. Just want to let you know that this episode contains spoilers from The Force Awakens, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, now's the time to shut the podcast off. For everyone else, enjoy the show. All right, I'm ready to go.
All right, I'm Jacob Tender, and I've seen The Force Awakens twice.
My name is Mike Amate, and I have only seen The Force Awakens in theaters one time.
Just one time.
Just one time. I'm sorry.
Well, welcome back to our podcast. We have a name. We're now called Bantha Fodder, and that's the name of our show. We went through a whole lot of names, and most of them were taken. And this is the one we landed on. We're pretty happy with it. I think this is easily one of the first 5 that we named, and definitely in the top 3 of the ones that we wanted. So, this is who we are, and this is what we're all about. We're talking about Star Wars, and episode 1 is currently out. We released it sometime earlier this afternoon. We've had a couple listeners out there already, which is great. If anybody has listened to that, is listening to this one as well, thank you for sticking around. You can find us on Twitter. We're at Bantha Fodder FM on Twitter and banthafodder.fm for our website, where you can find all of our lovely show notes to keep up with what we're talking about in each episode. We planned on being on YouTube as well, but unfortunately they didn't allow it. We had episode 1 uploaded and ready to go earlier today when we launched, but a couple days before, YouTube decided that our account would be suspended with no chance of appeal. I've tried twice, and I'm going to continue trying so we can get it up there as well.
It was a very offensive episode, I think.
I refuse to understand how we could have possibly infringed on any community standards or anything, especially considering the episode that they flagged wasn't even live. It was private, and Mike was the only person who had the link. So unless Mike reported us...
I tried to self-sabotage.
I'm calling foul. We may be back on YouTube, we may not, but in any case, we now are on iTunes, and you can find us in your favorite podcasting app. We're going. We're doing this thing.
A couple things actually appeared to us since the last episode. One being DVD that encompasses the entire Sci-Fi Channel marathon from 1993 that I was recounting. So I can really just go back and relive that entire weekend, just one for one on that one.
Which is funny, because when you first found the clips on YouTube and you were telling me about it, I was like, oh man, you can make your own fan edit now. You can actually splice in the pieces into the parts of the show where you want it. And sure enough, here it is on the internet for anybody to download.
Somebody already did the work, and that's the best thing I've ever heard.
It's incredible that a DVD exists for a Sci-Fi Channel marathon.
I guess that footage has to go somewhere. You know, Lando Cal is in there too, just
really?
giving a bunch of interstitials. I think most cast members from the movie came back and did a little in between. And
that's fascinating.
So that footage has to go somewhere. That's valuable stuff there. You can't just let that sit in an archive on the Sci-Fi Channel, which does not even exist anymore in that form.
Right. Have you downloaded this yet? Have you looked at it?
No, I've definitely seen the website and looked at it and thought about it. I think that if I'm going to do, because this is pre specialized edition, this is a pre all Lucas edits. You know, I don't I could get to see all these again.
Yeah, that's pretty special. But I'm assuming it's going to look like VHS quality.
I'm okay with that, though. I think that's very hip. I would say that's very hip to do.
Definitely. How much more hip can you get than watching VHS quality on a DVD? You know what? You should put that DVD that they made on Blu-ray.
Blu-ray quality VHS feed.
You could really see every little grain. Another piece of follow-up. I went to my local secondhand bookstore, and I went straight to the Star Wars section as I usually do. And in addition to a pretty healthy stack of Star Wars tabletop role-playing guidebooks, I also found book 1 of the exciting new series Star Wars X-Wing Rogue Squadron, like we talked about in the last episode.
By exciting new series, I think you mean...
Yeah, I mean, in 1996, this was an exciting new series, which is no longer considered canon. But the cover is pretty cool, so I'm excited to dig into that once I finally catch up on all my my new canon reading.
In the show notes for last episode, you also posted a link to the Amazon.com, the entire X-Wing collection on Kindle, which is retailing for about like $60 on Amazon. So you could definitely pick that up.
Not bad for the whole series. And
9 books.
Yeah, you just pick it up and you can start reading. I mean, these old books aren't bad. You know, they may not count as far as like the official story goes, but they're still good stories.
I think I can pretend. I can just really pretend that happened. You know, I'll find a way in my brain to fit in the canon of X-Wing into the actual Star Wars canon.
And this is the series about Wedge, is that right?
Yeah, Wedge is one of the protagonists. There's a bunch of them. Wedge Antilles and Karan Horn is the, I guess, Star Wars Legends new Luke Skywalker. He's just like a pilot. I don't want to spoil too much about it because book 4 gets pretty intense.
Yeah, no spoilers.
His
no
arc,
spoilers.
His character arc's pretty intense. Our topic for today that we're going to be discussing is rewatching these Star Wars movies and what it will take to get me into a movie theater again to see The Force Awakens, if at all. You know, I don't know if anything can get me back.
I'm determined to get you there.
So many people. I passed up an opportunity last weekend to do it because I couldn't handle it.
And why didn't you?
For good reason, internally. No.
Come on, hit me with it. Why aren't you going to see it again?
I will see the movie again. But that being said, I don't want to bring myself to go see it in theaters. I saw the movie in probably I think there's one of 8 theaters that can show it in the way that I saw it. I saw it at Jordan Furniture in Reading, Massachusetts. It sounds silly. It's like a furniture warehouse that the owners turned into like this ridiculous entertainment complex featuring an amusement park made of jelly beans called the Beantown, and one of the only IMAX theaters in the country to project 3D at like I think the screen is like 2 or 3 stories tall. It's gigantic. It was huge, and I saw it in such a way that I feel like nothing can compare to that. Having to crane your neck from one side to the other to watch Poe Dameron's X-Wing, you know, at one point I was like, I can't do this. Seeing it in any other way would I feel like just at this point diminish it.
Well, that's massive.
It was huge. It was huge.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
That's what I mean. Like, I saw it in probably the best way you can see the movie. Like, impossible to see it any better. I was in like the 3rd row.
You say this is a furniture warehouse. By 3rd row, are you sitting in like a church pew or a lawn chair? What are you sitting in?
When I say furniture warehouse, what I actually it's like, think of an entertainment complex. It's like a big mall, and there's 2 theaters on one side of it. Jordan Furniture. There's a big intro given by like a dude who I believe has a ponytail and a beard, and he's like, "Hey, welcome to Jordan's Furniture. It's the only theater one of the only theaters in the world that is gonna give you the experience. I guarantee you, it's gonna be the greatest movie-going experience of your life." Like, it's really freaking good. Yeah, and they play that intro at the beginning of it. They talk about how they have like ass blasters in the chair, which are really just, you know, like subwoofers put in the bottom of every seat, and so like whenever the bass kicks in, it's really going to be intense. And yeah, it was crazy.
That does sound insane. I don't think that's necessarily a reason not to go see the movie again, but
no,
I can see how that definitely sets a high bar.
Yeah, it definitely. Okay, so it sets a high bar for viewing experience. That's one thing. I will say that out of all my friends, I'm probably one of the only ones who's seen it only one time. That's to me, that's odd, I guess, to have all your friends wanting to go see it again.
Right. Okay. Well, I've seen it twice. I said that at the beginning. I saw it twice opening night.
Did you see it in the same theater?
No, I did not. Myself and 2 friends traveled 45 minutes to Canton, Ohio to see it on a Real D XD 3D screen.
It's a lot of Ds.
Yeah, too many Ds. I have no idea how they packed all those dimensions in there, but that was the best possible viewing format that we could see it in, short of IMAX, which I wasn't even sure was going to be available at the time that I pre-ordered, because this was back in October when I bought my tickets. I wanted to be ready, so we made it out there, and we had to sit up, pretty close to the front, which isn't necessarily the best experience, having to crane back so far. But
I prefer that.
I think that definitely makes it more immersive. But it was definitely harder to catch the smaller nuances of the movie, some of the smaller details when you're sitting up that close. So that's the way I saw it the first time. And as soon as it was over, I looked at my watch, and since this was like the preview showing on Thursday, like 7 p.m., it was only like 9 o'clock by the time the movie was over. So I texted my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, do you want to go see it again tonight? And I drove back to Worcester, dropped my friends off with their cars, and my girlfriend and I went to go see it again in Worcester. And that's a much smaller screen. Again, another Cinemark, but this was a 3D showing on a much smaller screen with much crappier speakers. There was a lot of parts where the speakers started cutting out just due to the noise. I think one of them may have blown out during one of the initial fight sequences, but that's the way that I saw it for the second time. And that time I took a notebook with me and I took notes solely for the purpose of writing my review, which I'll link in the show notes here. I knew that if I wanted to write about it quickly, I needed to see it again quickly to catch the details of the movie that I wasn't watching for the first time. First time was definitely a pleasure viewing, and I really enjoyed it so much that I thought, you know what the heck? I'll go see it again tonight. I'll take some notes, and I can start writing about it then.
That's a thing that I think that a lot of people went to go see it again a second time for. It is just to see the finer things, the details, wanting to know how a character said a certain line, or to really see if how quickly did Rey get her Force powers? Did Kylo Ren know a lot about what was going on with Rey? When an officer said a girl is involved in this, and a lot of people wanted to see that stuff.
Yeah,
again,
absolutely, and I think that's why you need to go again, Mike. You've seen the movie, you liked the movie, you saw it on a gigantic screen, not unlike the way that I saw it. There are definitely things in this movie that you did not pick up on. And I implore you to please go see this movie again just so you can pick up on those things. The second time I was watching it, I was taking notes of things that I thought were interesting and stuff that I kind of wanted to research and question later. But I also noticed things that were missing. Having watched the trailers as many times as I did, I deconstructed those trailers to the point where I literally made animated GIFs of every single shot in the trailers, just so that I knew every little detail of it, just to see if I could, piece together any things that might, clue me in on anything before I actually entered the theater. And interestingly enough, there are scenes in those trailers that did not make it into the movie. And I think that's fascinating.
Which ones?
There were definitely a couple lines of dialogue from Snoke. I think that's one of the more obvious ones. Once we learned who the voice was in the trailer about, there's been an awakening. Once we learned that was Snoke, I was playing that trailer back in my head. I'm like, well, there's definitely, lines here that weren't said in the movie. And then one of the shots that, I'm still dwelling on and still thinking about, and I know it's just an alternate universe sort of thing, and that the trailers really shouldn't matter anymore. But there was a shot where an orange hand was handing Anakin's lightsaber to a female. And initially, I thought that was somebody, maybe Ahsoka Tano, maybe Maz Kanata, somebody handing the lightsaber to Leia, But it wasn't Leia. We know that now. Now I know that that's an alternate shot where she directly hands the lightsaber to Rey. But we know now, having seen the movie, that never happens. She touches the lightsaber. There's the dream sequence where Obi-Wan and Yoda and everybody is, speaking to her, and you see the halls of Bespin and the Knights of Ren and all that. And then Maz comes downstairs to try to explain things to her and convince her to, take the lightsaber, but she doesn't take it. She runs. So in another world, that scene was there. And, I wouldn't have picked up on that. I wouldn't be able to question that or kind of think about why maybe JJ made the change to the movie in that way unless I went and saw it again.
I hear you, Jacob. I hear you.
Well, I'm glad you're listening.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear where you're coming from on this. But here's the thing, is that going into a theater for me and seeing a movie again and looking for those details, there are things I want to see in that movie. There are things, I think the dream sequence from when the Knights of Ren are slaying other young Jedi.
Maybe.
Oh, but they're doing something.
We don't know that for sure.
is a topic for another day. But yes, they're doing something. But just the dream sequence in general, Rey's dream sequence in general, I feel like there's a lot of stuff I want to see there again. Absolutely. That is something...
Well, it happens so quickly, and it's hard to pick up on that.
I walked out of the theater wanting to see that again. I read about Obi-Wan's voice being present, Ewan McGregor voice, and Alec Guinness voice being there, and I
So
totally
cool.
missed that. I missed Yoda's voice being in there, and that is something I would really love to see again. But is that dream sequence worth going into the theater and having to watch Han Solo die again? Because that, to me, is my biggest thing. I don't want to watch the painful moments again. I know it's just a movie. It's just a movie. But for me, it's just so much
Well,
dread.
Mike, you can't say that. Otherwise, you're saying you're never going to watch The Force Awakens again.
I will, but when I'm ready. The wound is still fresh. The wound is still fresh.
Oh, you're like every middle-aged woman who had a crush on Harrison Ford back in the 1980s. You can't bear to see that scene again.
No, I can't. Just a lot of swagger falling off that catwalk.
Poor thing. Well, whatever you decide to do, I'm sure it'll be okay. I think you should. I really think you should go see the movie again, at least one more time in theaters, because chances are you're not going to see it again in theaters. They very rarely bring these movies back for a second run.
They brought episode 1 back into theaters, I think, a year after it was out of theaters. I don't know if you remember that, but
I don't.
Episode 1 was brought back in. It's like, and now for a special encore, like this summer, coming back again is episode 1. So I challenge you on that.
That's interesting. I doubt they're going to do it again for this Star Wars, just for the simple fact that they're going to have another Star Wars movie every single year.
Yeah,
I don't think that they're going to bring it back. It's not going to be the prequels where they even bring them back a decade later because they made them 3D. These are already 3D. They're done. There's very little that they could do to this less than, shooting things off of the screen physically into your face so that you actually feel the movie happening that would bring this movie back to the silver screen.
I would go see that in theaters again.
I would too. I'd be right there.
I would do that.
Well, it's your decision. It's your call. I hope you make the right call. But I think we should move on. So we've talked about rewatching The Force Awakens in theaters. Let's talk about rewatching some of the older movies, episodes 1 through 6, at home. We have all of these movies at home in various formats that we can watch them in. What is your policy for rewatching the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy?
Ooh, it's more about an experience for me, and whether it's somebody new that's never seen Star Wars before. Every once in a while, you will come across that person in your life who has never seen Star Wars, and you have to decide how you're going to show them, because you take it upon yourself, of course, to show them.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one reason that I can justify watching the film again. I think just a certain amount of time, forgetting about a movie and then coming back to it. Like I think about 2 years ago, I rewatched the entire prequel trilogy with my 2 roommates just to see how bad it could have possibly been. It was very bad, to be clear, but we didn't remember it being that bad, but it was. I thought episode 3 was very good when it came out, but I didn't realize how bad it actually looked in certain spots until I rewatched it again. We kept checking our file to see if we had like a weird download, or if we had gotten like a weird pre-effects version, or like an unfinalized edit of the movie that somehow made its way onto the torrent sites. I mean, to iTunes. But yeah, it's got to be about the experience. Something new has to have happened to me since then, or just and something has to be changed.
Okay, that's interesting. There's an episode of How I Met Your Mother that I recently watched with my girlfriend that's kind of on topic here. It's I believe it's season 7, episode 20. It's called Trilogy Time, and I don't, for those who haven't watched the show, these 3 characters are, or at least these 2 characters are very good friends. They've been friends since college, and in college they decided that they would watch the trilogy, stay up late, forego all of their studying for the evening, and just watch the entire trilogy. And a part of that was, talking about how they would rewatch the trilogy again in 5 years, and how their lives would be different in 5 years. And then it cuts forward to 5 years later, and their lives aren't the way that they expected it. But they still have this trilogy to watch. So they watch the trilogy and they talk about how their lives are going to be 5 years from then, and then flash forward, and it's the same thing over and over again. And I think that's really cool, because rewatching movies like this that have such nostalgia and take you back to a very interesting time in your young life. It can set milestones. You know, you can go back to this old thing being who you are today. Although we change as people all the time, these movies will stay constant unless George Lucas gets a hold of them again. We have all of this film that we can watch at any given time, and I think that's great. And I was kind of the same way for a while. Every few years, I might dig out the movies, on VHS, and I would rewatch them. And as we got closer and closer to the new movies coming out, I was watching them much more frequently. I say I could probably watch the entire saga, episodes 1 through 6, maybe twice in the past year. Before that, I think it was a lot less frequent, but I think it's great to rewatch those movies even now because I'm still picking up on things that I have never seen before. And it's taking me back to an older time, and I'm remembering watching these for the first time. The things that made me excited then are still making me excited now. And even though I understand more things about the movie and certain scenes, I can definitely still appreciate the movie the way that I did before. And it's kind of cool because it takes you back into this mindset that normally you would never think the way that you thought as a child. But watching something like this has a way of kind of resurfacing those trains of thought that you had when were like 5 or 6 years old and you're watching this for the first time. And I think that's fascinating. I have no idea the psychology behind that. I'm definitely not intelligent enough to speak as to why that's occurring, but I definitely know that it does, and I think that's really cool.
For sure.
So with you, Mike, are you watching these? You say you watch them when you're showing them to somebody new. I did the same thing when I started dating my girlfriend. It was a long drag to try to get all these movies through just in time for the new one to come out, but we got through them, and that's really fascinating. I think that'll be a great topic for another time. But when it's just you and you're feeling like, oh, I really want to watch Star Wars right now. How do you prepare for that? Are you watching them all in one go, or are you spreading them out over maybe the course of like a week or something?
I think that's what makes me maybe an anomaly. Not cool or special or anything, but just an anomaly in the sense that I never really want to watch Star Wars again unless I'm watching it with somebody else. I don't really ever sit down and say, oh, I should toss this on. It's a thing.
Would you say it's like a shared experience?
Yeah, I mean, from the start, Star Wars has been a shared experience. I don't think there's ever been a time where I've watched it by myself. And so rewatching it by myself in general, it wouldn't happen. I have to be that guy who would just turn to his right during the middle of the movie to see what the person's reaction is when they see, when Darth Vader says, "No, I'm your father." I want to see the look on their face, whether they're seeing for the first time or they're interpreting it for the fifth time. I want to have that experience. That's the best part about seeing a movie to me.
That's interesting. So you find it difficult to watch a movie on your own. Is it like that for all movies? Do you ever sit down by yourself and just watch a movie, or is it generally, you and a friend or you and your girlfriend?
Watching a movie by myself does happen. It's usually going to be a slower drama, or I even watched like a god-awful movie. I watched The Core, which is regarded as one of the most scientifically inaccurate films of all time. I watched that by myself as a joke mostly. But yeah, I don't know. I do watch movies by myself sometimes, but I would never toss on Star Wars just to see it, unless it had been, like 20 years or something like that.
All right, Mike, I'm with you. And I would never want to change who you are. I like you very much as the way you are, but I'm going to issue you a challenge.
Okay.
I challenge you to watch the original trilogy in whatever format you like on your own. I want you to absorb the movie. I want you to take notes of things that maybe you hadn't caught before.
I can't.
I want you to have a solo experience. You don't have to love it. You don't have to enjoy watching it on your own, but I would love to hear from you in a future episode, just as a little bit of follow-up, what it's like for you to watch a Star Wars movie on your own. Don't even do the whole trilogy. I just want you to watch A New Hope in one go on your own.
I don't know if that's possible.
Notes.
I think
you can do it.
I think a bigger part of not wanting to watch the movie again in theaters and not wanting to watch it again by myself is that I could be doing so many other things with that time. I could be seeing other movies, and that to me is one of the biggest reasons why I don't see these movies again. is, I was given the opportunity to go see The Force Awakens the other night, and instead, to me, what ended up being a better option was seeing The Hateful Eight in theaters, which just came out. And I don't want to do the same thing again twice. I will do it eventually, but only when the experience is unique. I've already been in a theater seeing it.
But you've never watched it alone.
I've never watched Star Wars alone.
That's unique.
My name's Mike Hamate, and I've never seen Star Wars alone. Which is not as depressing as I just made it sound, but it's the truth.
All right, Mike, that's my challenge to you. Take it or leave it, but you do have a Star Wars podcast now, and I think you owe it to me and the listeners to at least give it a shot.
I think that one thing that we try and do with this show is try and make it personal. And I was wondering, Jacob, if you have any specific rewatching experiences that stand out.
I think maybe 2 years ago, I had just started dating my girlfriend a couple months before, and over the summer she went to live and work on Mackinac Island in Michigan, which meant that she was very far away for a very long time. And that left me a lot of time to sort of, I guess, just hang out and watch movies, kind of on my own. And I dug out this Millennium Falcon 3D puzzle that my late grandfather gave me, and I was putting that together, and I still haven't finished it. But I spent something like 2 straight days. I didn't have to go to work or anything, so I spent 2 straight days watching the Clone Wars TV series on Netflix and putting together this puzzle. And once I finally finished the existing Clone Wars episodes that were on Netflix, I was like, you know what? I'm really, really back into Star Wars. And I'm not going to say that was like the revival, because I had been, kind of getting back into it already, just hyping myself up for the new movies and, all the new stuff that was about to come out at the time. But I rewatched every single movie that weekend, and that kind of sticks out because it was just kind of me, hanging out in my room and really just enjoying Star Wars for what it was, and just sort of letting it keep me company. Does that count? Is that good?
That more than counts. That is a very sweet memory, and I think just the fact that it was you watching it alone says a lot about it. I think someone's favorite Star Wars rewatching memory may have something to say about their personality and their character.
That could be true.
Wait, ask me about my favorite memory.
Oh yeah, you got a good one?
I absolutely do. I was discussing it last night with one of the people who was a part of it. It was a Star Wars marathon that my friends and I put together on Memorial Day weekend. So we had Monday off, and it was going to be amazing. At this point in time, it was episodes 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6 were released on DVD. Episode 3 was in theaters still. So our plan was to watch them, I believe, episodes 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, and then go to the theaters to see them all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then go to the theaters to see episode 3.
Immediately after.
That was the plan, for sure. Prior to that plan, though, what we needed to do was we tried to scour the internet on various file-sharing clients to see if we could get a copy of episode 3. And we thought we had it at one point. We found it. We typed in Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, into our search in Kazaa. And... and what
Way
came
to date
up,
yourself.
Yeah, I know, seriously. I mean, it wasn't LimeWire, right?
Yeah.
So then we type that into the search engine, and we click on this file, downloads. It's about an hour and a half long, and we open the file, and what we see is just an American flag kind of just fading in, and it says, something, nothing to do with Star Wars, and it jumps right into pornography. So,
nice.
Instead of finding Star Wars, we found pornography on my best friend's family's computer. So we promptly deleted that, and we decided that going to see it in theaters would be the better choice. In that situation. Oh man, it was great. And it was just one of those days. I mean, that's a lot of hours to be watching movies. That's
so much
we
time.
started a little bit before noon, but we had to wait for some people to get there. And, so we would pass the time by watching the special features for certain movies on the DVDs.
Oh,
and,
wow. So that's a lot of Star Wars.
Yeah, when my friend Sam was out of work, he would show up. And we got through most of it. I actually forgot about a guitar lesson I had that day, and I missed it. And then my friend who had the lesson after me was alerted in time and jumped in the car and just drove across town to get a lesson. And that was just, it was a long day, and we were all very burnt out. We ate cookies shaped as stars, which again, not really a symbol you see a lot in Star Wars, but hey, it meant something that somebody brought it.
Ooh, you know what? That'd be interesting. While you're watching Star Wars alone, Mike, I want you to watch to see if there is a star anywhere in the movie.
Well, I mean, are we talking like the little beads at the opening crawl? Or
no,
something
I'm talking like a 5-pointed star.
A 5-pointed star. Okay, I will look for it.
I would venture to say that you probably can't find a 5-pointed star maybe anywhere in the original trilogy.
I feel like there must be one somewhere on like a pilot helmet or something like that, or like on the
maybe a badge
of an X-wing.
That interesting.
That's
a thought. That's something to watch for. I'm gonna do that.
No stars in the Star Wars universe. You know why there are no stars in the Star Wars universe?
Because it's too on the nose?
Well, think of it in terms of the context of the characters. So they're traveling across galaxies. Our stars came from how we perceive them, right?
Maybe.
Like, with the twinkling and the points, but they're just like points of light that we kind of made symmetrical. Mm-hmm. I don't know for sure. I'm just making stuff up. But I'm just assuming that that's how we develop stars.
Science Corner with Mike Comite.
Science Corner with Mike Comite as he analyzes. That probably happened. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds about right. But the people in the Star Wars universe fly by stars all the time. They know what supernovas are. They know what black holes are. They know what a lot of that stuff is. So they know that a star doesn't have 5 points. And why would they ever draw a symbol like that if they had nothing to base it off of? They were just next to stars forever.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I've got another rewatching story, and you can cut this in instead of the other one, or I'm lonely, or not. It's totally up to you, but I'll tell you anyway.
Okay.
I recall rewatching the movie maybe just a few months ago. I think it was maybe August or September. It may have even been October, because this year's been unseasonably warm, at least up until December. And I went over to my buddy's house, one of the same friends who went to go see the movie with me. And it was actually at his parents' place, and they set up a little outdoor theater with a projector and a white screen, and that's where we watched it. We had a bunch of people over. Some people have seen it before. Some people have seen it in the theaters originally, and some were far into their 20s but have never seen the film all the way through. And then we had an infant. We had a baby that was maybe not more than 2 or 3 months old. And that was the child's first Star Wars experience. And my friend put together a whole little reel where it showed trailers for every single Star Wars movie, sort of before the opening credits, and then the credits rolled. We watched the entire film, and then there was a preview for the new feature that was coming out in just a couple of weeks. So that was really cool. It's nice to sit outside and have a beer and some pizza and just kind of hang out with some people that I care about and watch Star Wars again. But this time with a bunch of different people who have experienced it in a lot of different ways, and one baby that had never experienced it before.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That kid's not going to remember that at all.
Not at all. But I will when it's older.
Can you say how many times you've seen Star Wars? Is that even a number you can put on?
No.
Like, if you were to amalgamate all the movies together, how many times have you seen them?
Like, as a whole?
Yeah.
Man, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea.
More than 10?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, as far as, like, the prequels go, I could probably tell you that I've seen Revenge of the Sith maybe 5 or 6 times total.
Compare that to something from the original trilogy.
Oh, man. I mean, the original trilogy, like, I couldn't tell you. That was on repeat when I was a kid, so before I was even 20 years old, I may have seen it, 30, maybe 40 times. Like, I'm telling you, it was always on at my house. I played those VHs all the time.
That's so many hours of your life spent watching Star Wars. which I think is awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. As a kid, like, you know, when my mom wants to have a little time to herself where she doesn't have to like watch us and make sure we're not falling out of trees, like she can just sit me and some other kids down in front of a TV and we can watch Star Wars. That's what we did. And we had the toys too. So while Star Wars is playing in the background, we're, you know, reenacting those scenes with action figures. Like that's all we did. That's all that I wanted to do is just, you know, watch Star Wars and play with Star Wars toys. That was my childhood.
That's great. I think I'm upwards of 10 times, I think, each movie.
Even the prequels?
So the original trilogy, I think I've seen 10 times at least, each one. And the prequel trilogy has to be episode 1, 4 or 5 times, episode 2, probably 3 times, 3-4 times, and episode 3 twice. I think I've seen that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common with the prequel trilogy. It's sort of the number of rewatches sort of degenerates because I think, you know, obviously as time goes on, you're waiting for those prequel movies to come out. You have an opportunity to see them again, and then I think once you've finally finished that prequel trilogy, a common feeling is like, well, at least I've seen it. You know, I don't have to see it again. I know what happens. So I think episode 3 is probably the least watched Star Wars movie of all time. I'd venture to say that's the case.
Which is odd because you consider it the best of the prequel trilogy, right?
I disagree.
Oh, you
and
don't?
A lot of the people I talk to disagree. I think objectively, episode, I think it's difficult. I'm more in the line where episode 1 was the best all the way through. Episode 2 just had a lot of cheese, and I think a lot of people discount episode 1 just because of the politics and how little it actually matters to the story. So I think it's generally a toss-up between 1 and 2, but 3 was put together very well. I think it was directed a lot better than the first 2, but I think there's still a lot of flaws in that movie in the way that things kind of rushed to kind of close things up and how it actually ended. I think that kind of discounts it for me as one of the better prequel movies. But I honestly don't put a lot of thought into that. I really don't care to rank them. I think Empire is probably my favorite, but apart from that,
without a doubt,
I really don't. I don't see the advantage of ranking them. I don't think that really does anything to help anybody. But
no, I agree with you. I would.
It's more of the whole story.
Yeah, it's more about like if I had to rewatch one movie, which one would you choose? Like that's kind of the reason I would say like, oh, episode 3 was the best of the trilogy, but it is the least watched. I agree.
Yeah. All right. You feel good?
I'm deeply saddened by the challenge that you've placed on my shoulders to watch Star Wars by myself, but
I'm confident that you can do it.
Okay, if you believe in me, I know that
I believe in you. You've got this.
But I just watched it like a month ago.
No. You're gonna watch it. Oh, there's that music. I know what that music means.
What does it mean?
It means we're wrapping up, Mike.
Oh, okay. It's time to go.
It's time to go. Thank you all for listening to episode 2 of Bantha Fodder. We'd love if you shared your feedback with us on Twitter. You can find us there as Mike Comite and Curbside Audio, or at Bantha Fodder FM, which will be in the show notes. You can find the show notes at banthafodder.fm/episode/2. And if you have a moment, please rate us on iTunes and recommend us an Overcast. Doing either of those things can help a new podcast like ours more than you know. Thank you again for listening. Say goodbye, Mike. Do you have a confirmation name?
No, I don't. I wasn't confirmed. I'm a heathen.